Okay, we are nearing the end of this chapter on conversions. Today we're going to focus on converting measures of temperature. So, before we do that, we need to understand what temperature even is. And it is the measure of kinetic energy in the material, whatever that material happens to be. It could be a liquid, solid, gas, doesn't matter. Temperature is the measure of kinetic energy. But what is that? Kinetic energy is the amount of motion. So the hotter something is, the faster the molecules inside of that object are actually vibrating and moving around. They're knocking into each other, pushing each other around. More kinetic energy means more vibration, more knocking, more motion. A lower temperature means there's less kinetic energy, which means there's less motion inside of the molecules. So they're colder, they're moving less. There are many different ways to measure temperature, at least by scales. One is Fahrenheit, that's the one we're familiar with. Another is Celsius, that the international community tends to use. A third one is Kelvin, and we'll talk about that one in a moment, but for now let's focus on Celsius. We're already familiar with Fahrenheit. Celsius, that international measure of temperature, focuses on the boiling and freezing points of water. And what they did is they set 0 to mean the freezing point of water, and 100, or I mean 0 degrees Celsius as the freezing point of water, and 100 degrees Celsius as the boiling point of water, which is pretty good. If we look at Fahrenheit, the freezing point of water is 32, and in Fahrenheit, the boiling point is 212. Of course, that's under standard pressure. Kelvin is a completely different animal, and it's based upon what we call the triple point of water. The triple point is the pressure and temperature at which a substance, no matter what it is, can exist in three different states. So in this case, the triple point of water, we're talking about the point at which water is frozen, is also a gas, so water vapor, and is also a liquid. So we get all three of those at the same time. So for Kelvin, the way it works out is the freezing melting point of water is 273 Kelvin, and the boiling point is 373. So really weird measure. Not something we're going to commonly use, but it has its advantages in that Kelvin sets 0 Kelvin not as the freezing point of water, but as the temperature at which all atomic motion has stopped, meaning there is no kinetic energy. So if you say something has 0 Kelvin, we mean that it has reached absolute zero. There is no atomic motion. The molecules are not moving at all. We do want to focus on doing conversions, and here are three formulas that we need to know to get Fahrenheit, to get Celsius, and to get Kelvin. Now, if we're involving Kelvin, we'll have an intermediate step where we need to change to Celsius first. So if we wanted to add a formula here, we could say Celsius is also Kelvin plus 273. So we'd also have that one in the mix. Now, we do have these on our formula sheet, but now's a good time to get them in your notes so they're handy for the examples that we're about to do. Speaking of which, first example, let's convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. So to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, we're saying F equals 9/5 C plus 32. That's our formula. to use this formula, we're going to do a lot of math. We're going to change this C into the 25 that we have. So we'll write 9/5. And whenever we substitute for math class, we should use parentheses. So I'm going to put it in parentheses plus 32. Now I really could just go to my calculator, but we're going to follow the order of operations. So GEMDOS and we really aren't going to have grouping that much, but this means grouping or parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide, then add and subtract. So in most of our cases, we need to make sure we're multiplying and dividing before we are adding and subtracting. So we need to multiply 9/5 times 25. Now in our calculator, we could type a parenthesis, do 9/5, then do a parenthesis 25, and we could hit enter and get an answer. That's fine. It really depends on your calculator. If you have a fancy calculator, you could use the fraction key, which looks like this, and type in this 9/5. If you want to do it by hand, here's what we would do. We would cross cancel this 5 and 25, and that gives us 5. I actually divided that. And 9 times 5 is 45. And I'm going to add the 32 to it. And that gives me F equals 77 degrees. So what we're saying is 25 degrees Celsius is the same as 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So if that were the temperature outside, someone said to you it's 25 degrees Celsius outside, you would think, oh, it's a nice warm day. It's going to be comfortable. All right, let's do this one over here. We're going to change Kelvin to degrees Celsius. So we want C equals Kelvin plus 273. That's our formula. So 800 Kelvin, add the 273, and if this were a temperature outside, we are dead. So this is not a good situation to be in. That is really, really hot. You might be melting some metals with that. All right, this one down here, we want to change 98 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius. So we're going to use this C equals 5/9. Now we have a grouping symbol, F minus 32. So this grouping symbol tells us we actually want to break our order of operations and do whatever's in here first. So grouping always comes first no matter what, and we have something in a group right here. So we have 5/9, and now F, I'm going to put in my 98 minus 32. And I copy down, subtract 32, and I get 66. And this does not cancel nicely, so I'm going to just type it all in my calculator, and what I'm literally typing on my calculator is parentheses, not 5, divide 9, parentheses, and then I'm typing 66, exactly like that, to get the answer. So if you needed to do it by steps, you could do 5 times 66, and then at the end, divide by 9. And C equals 36.66666. Well, we're not going to write all that. We'll say 36.67 is good enough degrees Celsius. Now, this last one's tricky. I want to go from Fahrenheit to Kelvin. Now, there is a formula we could use for that, but we're going to do it in steps. So our formula to get Kelvin is Celsius minus 273. Now, I don't have Celsius here, I have Fahrenheit. So the first thing I'm going to do is get Celsius. So Celsius is 5/9 F minus 32. So Celsius is, I'm going to take that F and replace it with 65. And Celsius is 5/9, and 65 minus 32 is 33. And again, I'll type that into my calculator, and get C equals 18.33. Now I'll take that and put it into here. I'm ready to go. So 18.33 minus 273. And we'll type that in. And I get that in Kelvin is negative 254.67 Kelvin. I think that's all the examples I have, but we'll just double check. Yep. So we are close to the end. Good luck on your worksheet on converting. Take your time. Follow the order of operations.